special Finance Committee meeting to order. The date is October 17. The time is 1:03. With us today, we have Alderman Tolliver, Alderman Bade, Alderman Warman, Alderman Bugg, and myself, Alderman Franco. What we'll be doing today is going over the first of a number of departments, looking at the budget requests, vetting the budget. We'll start off with the proposed budget review for 2024, followed by Human Resources, then Finance, then Law Department. Madam Clerk, is there anybody from the public wishing to speak?
No, we have no registered speakers.
Thank you. I mentioned everybody. With that, we'll just get started because we have a lot going on today in this room. So without further ado, we'll have Mr. Minnick start off with the 2024 budget review.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe we're bringing up the presentation as we speak. As mentioned or as listed on the slide, this will be the second part actually of the discussion that we began at the regularly scheduled Finance Committee meeting last Thursday. Briefly, we'll go over a few more of the numbers, as well as talk over the summaries of some of the decision packages, the capital improvements plan, vehicle purchases summary, things of that nature. And then we'll talk in a little bit more detail about the general fund that we talked about last week. As mentioned, we will cover the individual departments in the individual departmental meetings that are taking place over the next 6 weeks. We'll also, as part of the overview, take a look at the next steps in the process and where we're headed from here. So again, intended to be a review from kind of the 30 to 50,000 foot level, and then we'll dive down deeper as we go in to the departmental presentations over the next month or so. So the key takeaways from the 2024 budget proposed as sits in front of you this afternoon. The budget is balanced. We do have approximately $560 million in expenditures budgeted. We have $490 million in 2024 budgeted revenues, and then another roughly $70 million from revenues and financing sources that occurred during 2023 and prior. As you're well aware, there are typically timing differences between our receipts of funds and some of those disbursements of funds. But as long as we can continue to maintain that budget balance, we do refer to them as a balanced budget moving forward. As we mentioned last week, again, there are no tax rate increases proposed as part of the budget. We are expecting that the property tax rate will decline for the 10th straight year. And we're seeing another significant increase to our tax base, our equalized assessed valuation. And primarily, that's due to, I believe, the reassessments that have happened, as well as some of the growth that's occurred within the city. Sorry. In terms of the 2024 budget highlights, we are continuing our economic development focus. We're seeing those reflected in our consumptive taxes and the performance that we're expecting in our consumptive taxes over 2024. We'll get into why that's so important when we get into the general fund a little bit later in the presentation. We are again seeing balanced operations in our enterprise funds, and we're continuing to prioritize key goals of the administration, such as public safety, economic development, and innovation and community collaboration. In terms of the property tax levy, we did talk briefly last Thursday about the fact that our public safety pension contributions are increasing for the city. We will actually see approximately a $1.9 million total increase to the property tax levy proposed in 2024. Actually, that's levy year 2023 that will be collected during calendar year 24. And as we talked about last week, this is primarily due to two reasons. Number one, our actuarial valuation for the 2024 contribution was done as of December 31st of 2022. 2022 was a very, very bad year in the investment markets. That was reflected kind of across the board, and certainly reflected in the results that we saw and achieved during that actuarial study. Additionally, the state of Illinois during calendar year 2023 made a mistake in the way that they were allocating the personal property replacement tax, PPRT. As we talked about, we fund our public safety contributions out of two main revenue sources. One is the property tax levy, and the second is the personal property personal property replacement tax. Because the personal property replacement tax was overstated by the state of Illinois and overdistributed by the state of Illinois, we are actually seeing a significant decline and expecting a significant decline in what we can allocate to our public safety pensions in 2024. And combined with that, they're also correcting the distribution mistake for 2023. So again, we're getting a little bit of a double whammy in terms of our public safety pensions and the tax levy. I did include a graph and a chart that goes back and actually breaks out the police pension and the fire pension property tax levies all the way back to 2011. And you can see we have had increases over time, slight increases over time, going all the way back to at least 2011 to account for the city's required contributions in our public safety property tax levies. I should also mention down at the bottom, the last bullet point or it's not actually a bullet point, but the last statement, we did actually offset the increase. We're actually seeing a $2.25 million increase to our public safety pensions, but we are offsetting that by about $325,000 in our general tax levy. In terms of the 2024 budget, we did look at and evaluate many decision packages. This actually occurs, or this summary actually appears on pages 10 to 19 of your budget document. It lists the detail of the decision packages that are included in the 2024 budget. Those decision packages that we did add added approximately $15.3 million to the city budget citywide, distributed over all of the funds moving forward. You can also see out on the right side of the tab, we are expecting vehicle purchases, or we did budget for vehicle purchases of just under $8.8 million, reflected on pages 29 and 30 in your budget books. We talked a little bit the last time and last week about our capital priorities and how those are continuing with initiatives that were started and begun in prior years. Items such as the Public Works facility, we're looking at the last probably significant year of construction activity for that particular asset during 2024. We also talked about the fire design and construction projects where we're constructing a new fire station and relocating to others. And we did actually let the contract for the architectural design and engineering services for those last week. River Park expansion is continuing, as well as capital maintenance on our facilities and our infrastructure. And appearing on pages 20 through 28 of the budget document is our capital improvements plan summary. This actually lists out the planned capital projects as of today for the city for the next 10 years. You can see out on the far right column, we're actually down all the way down at the bottom, we're expecting about $830 million in capital expenditures over the next 10 years, with nearly $120 million of those falling into 2024. The projects I just mentioned, such as continuing the Public Works facility, the initial stages of the fire department project, as well as some River Edge expansion work, are contemplated and are part of that nearly $120 million that's budgeted for 2024. And you can see over time, we do actually have quite a few infrastructure projects that are listed toward the bottom of that schedule as well. Switching gears a little bit and jumping over to the general fund, we talked about the fact that the general fund is balanced. We are anticipating about $233 million of revenue and expenditure activity within the general fund. This is about a 4.5% increase, or just under $10 million over the 2023 budget. We do have, again, public safety services. We're planned expansions for Medic 12. We included the personnel for that so they can be trained and ready to go when those fire stations we talked about are ready. And we are looking at adding a police lieutenant and seven additional officers. We'll talk a lot more about those specific plans when we get to those specific departments for their budget presentations. Again, we have funding planned for special events as well as community initiatives and support. Each year, as part of the overview, I like to do and like to show a revenue mix and where the revenue in the general fund comes from, and why economic development efforts in primarily are, or in particular, are so important. As you look at this pie chart, we have about 85% of the general fund revenues come from 7 main sources. We start out with property taxes equaling about a third of the revenue in the general fund, and then moving kind of, I guess that would be clockwise around the pie graph there. We see our state sales taxes at about 13%, home rule sales taxes at another 9%, food, beverage, and liquor taxes and utility taxes making up approximately 10% in total, as well as income tax, and then that personal property replacement tax, or PPRT, that I talked about a moment ago. So those revenue sources actually make up about 85%, 8.5 cents out of every, 85 cents out of every dollar that comes into the general fund are directly attributable to those main sources. And the other, I have never counted the lines in the general fund, but there are many, many pages of line items in the general fund other than those 7 items, and they make up the other 15% of the revenue. So if that's where the revenue comes from, then where does it go? This pie chart actually breaks down our general fund expenses by department. And as you look down toward the bottom of the table on the far right column, you can see fire, police, public works, public properties make up roughly 3/4 of the expenditures of the general fund, with the remaining departments equaling roughly 25%. So we're not any different than most municipalities. Our public safety services, our public works, our public facilities services tend to make up the bulk of the expenditures within the general fund. So next steps in the process as we get through the overview, we're planning, or we're starting, kicking off our departmental presentations today. Those will be continuing through November 16th. Right after Thanksgiving, we'll come back and ask the Finance Committee for a recommendation of approval of the draft budget for 2024, and move that along to the Committee of the Whole and the City Council on December 5th. And then, as usual, we pass the tax levy a week later, and we'll be requesting formal adoption of the tax levy for levy year 2023 to be collected during 2024 on December 12th. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know that's a brief overview, but it's just intended to be a little bit of an appetizer for what we're going to be eating, I guess, over the next 6 weeks, if you run with the analogy. So,
Questions or comments from the committee? Alderman Bug?
I'll make a brief one that will, I guess, impact us going forward all the time. So you mentioned about the vehicles.
yes.
And today we're going to review someone who has is purchasing a new truck.
Yeah,
You
that
said
would
that
be
was on
finance.
page-
It's water billing. I'm sorry?
Or it's under water billing.
Yes, it's in the finance department under the water billing division. There's replacement of, I believe, a 3/4 ton truck, but I may be mistaken on
Yeah.
the exact
Okay,
nomenclature.
so in the past, we would have a decision package in that individual division. We don't, but so we're going to review back to page 29 and 30 when we're looking at vehicles.
The decision packages are not there, but the summation of the vehicle purchases is in 29 and 30. If we need to see a decision package for each individual vehicle, I think we can make those arrangements. That would, after today.
Okay. No, I don't think it's necessary. I'm just thinking of how we looked at it in the past. Just maybe, of course, when we get the police, we'll want to, 16 vehicles, we'll want to look at that all together, but that's fine.
Okay.
Just so we know where to go to find the information.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? All right, hearing none, we'll go right into
Thank
the
you.
various departments. We're going to start with HR.
All right, I need to, here we go. Okay. I'm technically challenged, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So I would start
Alicia,
out,
can you just
Yes.
state your name for the record?
Alicia Lewis, Chief Human Resources Officer. All right. So we've had a busy year this year in human resources, and I want to start out with highlighting some of the accomplishments and projects that we worked on and are moving forward. As you know, a couple of years ago, we were able to add staff, and it's now starting to come to fruition, and we're really starting to see some positive movement in human resources. This year, we are working with IT. We've procured a multi-data tracking system for efficiency and workflow management. And so what that will do is help us to collaborate and communicate better with all of the different departments in terms of onboarding as well as offboarding. There's a lot of different components that go into getting somebody settled, whether it's getting their computer set up, whether it's getting their name badge and whatnot. And so there's a lot of communication. And in the past, it's been kind of haphazard. And now with Avanti being put into place, similar to work tickets that departments have been able to put in to get projects done, will now be able to use this system at the very least to communicate and have a number of different divisions and departments within this workflow process to help people get what they need and get situated better. We're also, this year, we've established a fire department recruitment team. There's really been a push and a focus on not only getting our positions filled, after the pandemic, we've seen a decline in interested parties, and so there really has needed to be more of an effort to get out there, both on police and fire, but we're concentrating on fire, especially within minority recruiting. That's always a challenge. It's not just the city of Aurora. I think if you were to talk to any municipality, you would know that it is a challenge to get a diverse workforce into certain departments. So to that end, we are concentrating on that. Human Resources has partnered with the fire department. They've created a recruitment team to really concentrate on that area. The police department they've done a really good job with recruiting, but they're expanding that also. And so Human Resources is also working with them. So with this recruitment team, we've asked for, first, folks in the fire department that are interested in being on this project. We want people that are engaged. And so they have been very responsive to staff and working with staff. And so now they're starting to do some planning events within the community and really starting to move forward with the recruiting. Now, we have already had the fire department within the schools, especially with the fire cadets. We've had cadets, fire cadets for how long? A few years now. Yeah, about 5 years, because the police department has had fire cadet, or police cadets for quite some time. And so we are actively, the fire department is actively in the schools, doing events, trying to touch the young folks and get them acclimated and get them exposed to the fire department. And so we're continuing that effort. So I'm very pleased with how the recruitment team is developing. Then we also have acquired UKG. I know that everybody knows UKG from a time and attendance system that we are in the process of implementing and right now testing. But UKG also has a component for an HRIS system. And so we have, with council's approval, acquired that. And the hope is that within early next year, we will have that up and running. It's one process, one system after the other. So it'll take a little bit of time to get through the time and attendance, and then we will be working with IT to concentrate on getting our HRS system up. We participated in building a network for the citywide time and attendance software, as I just talked about. We're also creating a social media presence to educate the public about careers in government. Again, a focus on the recruiting. We actually have promoted somebody from within to continue the efforts for our recruitment and retention coordinator. She's working with the fire department. We are, in terms of social media, we now have a Facebook page up. It's in its beginning stages, so it hasn't been developed yet, but it's there. So when you guys go to look at it, there will be some additional information that will get on there soon. And we did, mid-year, have a citywide compensation assessment completed. We've used HAY in the past to assess our positions to make sure that we're competitive, that our pay rates are competitive with the rest of the community. The last time we had an assessment done was in 2018. So there was an assessment done this year. You will see going through the budget that there will be a recommendation for an adjustment in some of our positions. Now, just as a kind of a refresher, our pay plan has grades 11 up to 22. And the pay study has shown this year that the city, generally speaking, is fairly competitive, at least in the lower grades. However, in the higher grades, we aren't as competitive, and so there's been a recommendation to adjust those, the higher grades into a 50th percentile as opposed to a 25th percentile so that we stay competitive. So that will be an adjustment in the budget, and hoping that the council will approve that.
Lisa, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Since we're on that particular study. So we did one 5 years ago.
Yes.
2018. Is that a typical amount of time for us to do a study every 5
Yes.
years? Be normal? And then I believe the last time, it was very similar in the assessment in that the middle to the lower job titles, we'll say, was pretty much spot on. The higher ones were below. So we
Yes.
corrected, and then
To some extent, and but baby steps, because
Okay.
we have to be conscious of the impact that has on the budget, and so we did do some adjustment in those in the higher grades. We didn't adjust it to the level that we could have, but we're being conservative. 5 years later, the study is still showing that we are not competitive at the percentile that we're at. And so, yes, and so we will be making that
So we went
adjustment.
incremental last time. We didn't go, it's still below. We just eased our way up because it was a significant difference and there was budgetary concerns.
Yes.
I just want to get my
Yep.
my hand around that.
No, you're absolutely right.
Alderman Bug?
Yeah, I'll follow up on that. And thank you for bringing that up, because that's the main thing I saw going in these first three departments. But when we're looking at these numbers, there were a number of departments that had the same number of people, and one division in particular had the same number of people, same number of full-time people, and the salaries were up 25%. So we just have to extrapolate that, because it doesn't say anywhere that the salaries for this division went up 25%.
Okay.
I just calculated the numbers and came to that. So this is where, from this study, evidently this division and some titles, their rate is going to go up.
Yes.
In that.
Yes.
Okay.
And you'll see it higher because it happens to be in the higher pay grades. So with that, in addition to the COLA, it's going to look big, but it's only half of as I said, the top half of the pay grades that are adjusted. So all of our positions will not be adjusted up.
Right. So when we go through, I mean, we're going to be doing this for a month. When we go through a certain division, and even when we get to this page 594 here in a half hour, will you be able to tell us what title, what position kind of got the bump up, or do you have charts or?
Yeah, and I don't have a list of, I can tell you all of the positions from grade 14 and up. Is that what you're asking?
Oh, okay. So generally across the board.
It's across the board. So the pay range, yes,
Our
the
staff-
pay range, right, is
Increased.
adjusted. It will be adjusted to a 50th percentile. So it will be all of those positions in grade 14 and above.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, you continue, sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. So we also have, with the development of our training and development division, we initiated the Leadership Training Academy this year. And I'm just very pleased to say how successful it has been. Our Leadership Training Academy focused on either our current management staff and/or up-and-coming management staff as identified by department and division heads. This year, we had 8 modules. One module, so when I say module, it was a certain topic like succession planning, diversity, or what are some other ones? Communications. And so people were invited to attend. It was not mandatory, but it was encouraged that people attend. And it did very well, and we've been very happy with how the Leadership Training Academy has turned out. We actually had internal trainers, Kelvin Bean, who's our training manager, Rich Jacobs, he actually did a training session, as well as external trainers. We had somebody from Wabanzi come in, somebody from Aurora University. So it was very diverse and a lot of really good topics. So we're happy with that. We've also procured and we're right now constructing the Cornerstone training software. And so this will be an online training program for our employees, and we're collaborating with EDI to do that. So it'll be a shared system, and we're just getting that going, and hopefully we'll be able to get our employees on the system before the end of the year. We also are collaborating with EDI on the unconscious bias training citywide. And again, in the world of diversity and inclusiveness and making sure that people feel like they're seen and that they're understood. This is a very important training for right now, and so this is going to be a mandatory training that will be rolled out within our organization starting within the next month. We're starting with executive staff first, and then rolling it out to the rest of the organization. Benefit and wellness initiatives is always important, and that falls under our benefits coordinator. And so we're continuing to have seminars that focus on wellness. During our, right before our open enrollment, we always have the biometric screening to encourage folks to make sure that they're healthy, and if they're not, to address that. And so I won't read through all of them, but we continue to focus on wellness initiatives. So these are just some stats of what's going on in human resources. I'm not going to read the numbers, but I can certainly share this. I think everybody has this information. It just gives you an idea of the personnel and what's coming through human resources, whether it's hires, terminations, retirements, resignations, promotions, transfers, and applications submitted. Just by myself. So again, this goes a little bit more into the weeds for our training and development division. You can see that in addition to the Leadership Academy, there are other courses that were held that they're responsible for helping coordinate and working with different departments and different divisions specific to our work staff's position, trainings that they have to have, and we have those trainings here at Training and Development. So there's a lot of activity going on other than the Leadership Academy. So what's on the horizon for 2024? We obviously have goals and objectives that we want to meet in addition to maintaining what's already been going on. One of the biggies for us, though, before the end of the year is and so actually this really is a 2023 goal, and that is to get back home. We're currently in a temporary site waiting for HR to be remodeled, and the goal is for us to be in there by November before the snow settles on the ground, and so we're hoping that that's going to happen. It looks, if you look in the windows, it doesn't look like much, but Jim promises that there's going to be walls up and furniture in there before the end of the year. So we're looking forward to that, and we've had to expand because of the additional staff that we have. And then again, as I mentioned, the plan is to be able to implement the new HRIS system next year. We're also streamlining civil service testing and the onboarding process. Most of our civil service testing is done online, but not all, and we are going to be revamping that whole system, hopefully, so that it makes it more convenient for the public and folks that are interested in learning about opportunity within the city to get on lists, to take the test, as well as internally just streamlining the process. So that's a focus for next year. I already mentioned what we're doing with recruitment strategies, and again, just focusing on continuing to build our recruitment strategies and also focusing on diversifying our workforce. We're also looking at developing safety programs focused on occupational safety awareness and accident reduction. That is something that will fall under our workers' compensation as we're looking at the claims that we're getting in and whatnot. There's probably ways to mitigate some of that, and with additional staffing, trying to kind of get in with the departments and divisions to see what's happening and what we can do to prevent accidents. research and promote voluntary benefits that align with our core benefits and provide value-added resources, which is something that we're always trying to do, but it's still always a focus for human resources. And next year, to add to the Leadership Academy, we will be adding the Future Managers Academy, and so it's a little bit of a different take and focusing more on the up and coming. And because we're now focusing on succession planning, it goes hand in hand. So I'm excited to see what that looks like next year. So the Human Resources have 3 decision packages that we'll be asking council to approve. 2 are personnel and one, and then the other 2 aren't. So we have a decision package for labor relations specialists. We, as you know, we have 8 collective bargaining agreements. Out of those 8, 5 will be expiring at the end of 2024, which means that we have to go to the table and we have to negotiate. And with that, that's proposals, that's taking notes, that's going back and forth. It's very time consuming, and it's a lot at the same time. And so the labor relations specialist will be kind of the main administrative person to gather the information, keep me on track with what's going on as things are going back and forth across the table. So that's going to be one of the primary responsibilities, because as I said, it was very time consuming in the past, and I think that this will help streamline the process. In addition, we found that folks they're more vocal, and so whether it's somebody that's bringing a complaint to human resource or feeling they're not treated fairly, or us having to gather information because somebody's suing the city, the labor relations specialist will be that person that will be able to sit in on interviews, ask questions, get the facts from management, get statements from employees. So do that preliminary investigation, as you will. And I'm hoping it'll save money too, because right now we use outside counsel to do a lot of that. If we have somebody that's more focused on that, then hopefully I'm going to save a little money on the backside when they're asking, all these questions and I don't have the answer because we don't have anybody to really focus on that. And management doesn't know either. So this person would also be able to help advise management on how to better do these interviews.
Oh, Mr. Alexander, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There actually is a 9th collective bargaining agreement that will be coming
And there's that too. Yes, you're right.
with the Metropolitan Alliance of Police and the IT department. But also significantly, this position, and we talked a lot about it at our level with HR, there is way more than just negotiating contracts. People think once you negotiate the contracts, which at times may take multiple years, times 8 or 9 contracts, but there's that in-between during the term of the contracts, you have to have people to actually help administer and enforce and advise. And one of the things over the years is we have a very fluid management group in different departments. For example, the police and fire, there are a lot of folks that retire, they get promoted, and so management in those 2 groups are the ones that are the front lines for HR on labor relations and contract enforcement. So it's almost a constant education, and sometimes just when the team works well with, say, a lieutenant in an administrative division, that lieutenant, rightfully so, gets promoted. And so then somebody bumps up in there, and so this position will play a very key role in not only what Alicia talked about on the negotiation side, but that critical administration of these contracts to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask the question, I kind of knew the answer. Hypothetically, we got 5 new contracts coming up. What if miraculously we got them all done by the end of the year? What does a person do for 3 years? But when you say that it's a constant administration, if that makes sense, I would also ask, that you said we went to outside counsel in the past, we hope to save money. Will this labor relations specialist have a law degree? I mean, is
No.
that kind of what we're looking at? So if we're going to outside counsel, should this person have a law degree to do that if we're using law?
And when I say, say we went from outside counsel, less conversation with outside counsel about advice on what to do, because we still have to go back and do it. So if I have somebody that's concentrate on what needs to be done, then that eliminates the hourglass turning over when you're having those conversations, because I've got somebody now that's averse, that knows what to do. Anytime that something comes forward, anytime a complaint comes forward, then that person's going to know what questions to ask, sit down, get the right information to be able to do the reporting so that we have the documentation and to advise management. Often, like right now, we have a couple issues where had management, had HR known sooner to what's going on in the workplace and how to address issues, then we would have been able to be more proactive in addressing the issue instead of now having to react to what's going on.
So we don't need somebody with a law degree. We need somebody who has information to reduce the amount of people outside counsel that we need to get the job done.
Correct.
Okay. I'm just trying to connect it.
Yes. Right. And just going back to what you said, once contracts are, this is unusual that we're not negotiating at all. Because even though they're all expiring at the same time, some go faster, some go longer. So it always seems like there's some type of negotiation. And I just got a breather, and now we've got a new one coming in. They don't all expire at the same time either. So you got 5 that are expiring at the end of next year, but then I got a couple more within the next year. So it's pretty constant.
Thank you.
So the other personnel or position that we're going to be adding, or that we're asking council to approve, is a confidential secretary. Again, new division, training and development. It's expanding. People are getting certificates. Trainings have to be scheduled. And just putting together information and resourcing the need. There is, right now, we've been using a temporary administrative person to support the training and development division, and we found that there's enough work now to justify somebody that needs to be there constant year-round. And so we're starting with asking for a part-time confidential secretary. The other 2 decision practices that we have, the recruiting LinkedIn career page. Again, another way to get some exposure for career development and personnel. We'll be sharing this linked page, the career page, with communications. Right now, the city has it will be sharing that page with them in order to get our positions out in a different light. And LinkedIn is considered fairly professional, so it's just another way to expand our recruiting efforts. And then lastly, the new hire police and fire testing. We're asking for an increase because we are going through these lists faster. And we talked about this before. We have to have a list to hire off of. We're exhausting because either people are not interested or they're going someplace else. And so we're just finding that so the more testing we have to do, the more it's going to cost us. So it's a numbers thing, so.
I have a question on that real quick. So the line item goes up every year, about $6,000. Is it going up because it's inflation? Is it going up because we anticipate hiring more recruits, hence we need more testing because there's volume in numbers, or is it a combination?
It is more so we're just going through the list faster. So instead of testing twice a year, we're now testing 4 times a year. So with each test, there's a cost. People are leaving, yes. Alex said retirements. People are retiring.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Alderwoman Page, you had a question?
Thank you, Chairperson. You mentioned about social media. Who will be helping? IT, or there will be a person who will be constantly updating social media with positions that are available in the city, Facebook as well as LinkedIn?
Right, so we'll have a Facebook page, and that will be manned by our recruitment and retention coordinator, Tiara, and as well as the LinkedIn page. From a human resources side, she will be the person that will be keeping the information updated in the job postings on there.
But let me just say, IT doesn't have anything to do with social media. They will be also supported by the communications department and Tony's people as needed.
But we are working with IT on the onboarding, and I think that might be what you're thinking about, the onboarding and the Avanti. So that's part of our bringing people in and our new hires. So that's where our collaboration with IT is.
Thank you.
And then, that's all I have.
Questions from the committee about anything that was presented from Human Resources?
Just if you could share this presentation with us.
Yes, I will. I'll do.
Alderman Bug?
Thank you. On page 282, just about contracted services. That's going up about 100%.
I don't have it as 22. Oh, 22.
282, 55,000 to 100,000.
You have, this is the budget you gave me. It's not the same. That's the Hay study. So that's the Hay study? You're saying it went,
It's going to go up. It's budgeted at 2024 for 100,000. A studies in the past.
how did,
It's at 50, the current budget is
5490?
Budgeted for next year's 100,000, so it's a $45,000 increase.
Okay. And, well, we do add, because throughout the year, and there'll be another contract with Hay Study, because we have outside contract with them because they, for new positions that are created, so we do it as a package, and they will assess positions for us. So we already have that in place, and we have to commit to a minimum number of positions, and throughout the year, we do have the positions assessed, and we're creating new positions. So we've got some positions that are coming up that have to go through that haven't been assessed by Hay. And there were also just general contracting.
Okay. So
You wanna add to that?
the current Hay study that we're talking about happened.
That already, yes, sir.
Yeah, it happened in 2023.
It happened, they started in '22, but the payment, right, but the assessment or the report was completed in '23.
So those budgeted numbers were over both years.
I'm sorry?
So the Hay study, maybe some of it came out of 2022 and some of it came out of 2023.
Did it out, do you know
I
if it
believe
came
it all
out?
came out of 2023.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought,
2022 and 2023.
Okay. So 2023
Because they were
year-to-date, we're
relative,
at 30,000? I mean, it looks like we've done a Hay study, we've paid for it already, and in 2024, it looks like amount-wise, we're doing a whole nother study.
Right.
Am I
we're not
clear?
doing, we paid for the Hay study that we got for this year. But we also budget, and we have to have monies for next year, because in addition in fact, in addition to that main study, the compensation, we have contracts with Hay for assessment purposes. So we anticipate and we know that next year, whether the positions change or responsibilities are added or positions are created, for one reason or another, we always are having positions assessed. And the contracts that we have with Hay, we have to commit to a minimum number of assessments.
Okay.
It also includes our benefit consultants, so that's not just Hayes solely.
I mean, is that new? Because the number doubles. So if we've already done a study, now we're just getting assessments from the study, that shouldn't be the same cost as the study.
Okay.
The number goes from 54,000 to 100,000. It doubles.
I will look at the numbers again to see how we got to the,
So LaDonna just reminded me, there is some additional cost. There's a few positions, particularly in our engineering department, that we have traditionally had difficulty recruiting for. So we did add additional funds to that area so that we could use an executive search firm for some of those higher level positions that we're having difficulty recruiting for.
Okay.
So if you'd like specific numbers on what we're going to be paying just for Hay for next year, I can provide that.
is 180 on?
No, I would
is
like a
180
breakdown on
okay.
that number, because it seems like we're doing
Right.
a lot less. I mean, in the past, that would have been a decision package, and we would have seen that, and it would have been explained. There's a lot less decision packages, for whatever reason. So, yeah, I would like that number explained, how it got doubled and what it went to.
And I would imagine through 180 Engineering, which is one of our contracting companies that we staff a lot of IT positions in. And I would say that, again, in looking at the competitiveness, that we have spent more trying to recruit and get people in for IT than we have in the past. And that's a constant conversation I have with the department head there of, what we need to do to get people in the door. And so that would also fall under there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Lisa, appreciate that.
All right, thank you. Oh, this,
All right, next we're going to go to finance.
It's not a separate presentation. Sure. Thank you. Here today to present the Finance Department budget. The Finance Department budget begins in the budget book on page 551. I believe it was also separated in the Legistar item as a distinct PDF if you'd like to follow along electronically. I'd also like to recognize the Finance Department staff who are available today. Stacy Peterson, our Director of Financial Operations. Jolene Coulter, our Director of Purchasing. Lisa Zepeda with Revenue and Collections. Linda Reed, our Assistant City Treasurer and Comptroller. And Dan Ferguson, our Accounting Supervisor, are with us today. Finance Department consists of 6 divisions: the finance administration area, accounting, budgeting, revenue and collections, and that revenue and collections division actually breaks out into two separate funds. We also have our purchasing division as well as water billing, and I should keep flipping the slides as we go. In terms of the finance department total budget, it's approximately $7.176 million, and that is comprised in three funds. We're primarily and mainly in the general fund at about $4.5 million. We also have a presence in the water and sewer fund at approximately $2.1 million. That's primarily the water billing division that is in the water and sewer department. And also, we mentioned a moment ago, the motor vehicle parking system fund for some of the downtown contract administration at about just under $500,000 per year. The $7.1 million number referenced at the top of the page does represent approximately $169,000 increase over the 2023 budget for the finance department as a whole. That's primarily related to two main expenditures that are proposed in the 2024 budget. Number one is an increase in our credit card service fees. We're increasing those fees approximately $120,000 per year. If you actually look at that line item in the budget, you'll see that we have $205,000 budgeted for all of 2023, and we've already incurred approximately $200,000 of expenditures in credit card service fees to date. We are actually seeing a significant increase in the number of people utilizing those credit cards and debit cards to pay their bills. That actually enhances our collection service efforts, believe it or not, but it does create a fee on the service charge side for those. Additionally, we're talking about a vehicle replacement, a truck replacement in the water billing division. As we look, typically for vehicle replacements, we don't usually do a decision package, Alderman Bug. We typically put those in. The decision packages are typically related to new vehicles when we're adding a vehicle to the fleet, or when we're increasing the size of the fleet, or adding an additional squad car, or if we were adding an additional truck in the water billing division, we do a decision package for that. With replacements, we go through a process with the fleet division. They take a look at the vehicles in question and make a recommendation as to whether they believe that vehicle is eligible for replacement or not. This particular vehicle went through that process and was recommended for replacement. You'll recall from the overview, we talked about $15 million roughly in decision packages that were added into the 2024 budget. The finance department actually accounts for two of those, totaling a whopping $8,000. We do have a mobile food vendor online processing software proposed. That's to enhance and automate the process of allowing food truck vendors primarily to apply online, pay their fees online, and track those registrations and those licenses a little bit better. Additionally, there is a decision package related to a salary upgrade for our minority women business enterprise purchasing coordinator. That decision package is in the amount of $3,000 and actually represents the implementation, or the anticipated implementation, of a 2023 goal, which was to concentrate some efforts on minority and women in business enterprise purchasing moving forward. 2024 major initiatives. There are a few more that are listed in the book, but I've highlighted three for the presentation today. Complete the financing elements of the casino redevelopment agreement. As you'll recall, there's a significant bond issue that is related to the casino RDA. We do anticipate that will be primarily done and closed during early 2024. We've also begun the process, or will begin the process, of replacing our enterprise resource planning system, our ERP system. We have some preliminary funds budgeted this year to start taking a look at a needs assessment for the ERP. Our current ERP is many generations old, and I believe it's approximately 30 years old if memory serves properly. Additionally, the Revenue and Collections Department assisted the Police Department with Quicket implementation. That's automated citation process for moving violations. Now we're going to take a look at some of the back-end operations and see if we can expand that usage to account for some of the things that we do in finance, like manually, or currently, we manually track some of the seizure fees and things of that nature. We're going to try to automate that process as well as part of the Quicket implementation. In terms of some of the major accomplishments and major initiatives that were listed out and acted upon during 2023. I mentioned a moment ago the minority and women business purchasing. We did go through the disparity study in conjunction with the mayor's office. We made an evaluation and implementation of those recommendations as was directed in the disparity study. That will actually be an ongoing goal. We'll keep working on that, but we did see partial implementation, or we are proposing partial implementation with the decision package that was listed a moment ago. We also implemented GASB 87, as we discussed at some length with the auditors last week. That's the accounting standards that require us to account for leases in our financial statements now. Kudos to the accounting department for going through that process. There was a lot of information gathering, a lot of evaluation of leases that were decades old in order to get those onto the financial statements. Additionally, we implemented during 2023 an automated credit card option for filing and payment of locally administered taxes, items such as the hotel tax, municipal motor fuel tax, food and beverage tax. There is an option now to pay those taxes for our business community online with a credit card and electronic filing. Lastly, on this sheet, we did transition the check writing and preparation process to the finance department. Initially and historically, that function had been carried out by the IT department. We have moved and transitioned that process into the finance department. And as mentioned down at the bottom and on the checklist on the right, all of the items are complete at the end of 2023, or as we speak today. Additionally, the finance department represents approximately 49 and a half full-time equivalent employees. That's 48 full-time and 3 part-time employees. We do propose maintaining that staffing moving into 2024. Some other major budgeted items, these aren't necessarily increasing significantly. They're just simply items that we have that are a significant focus of our budget and our activities. Actuarial and auditing fees, bank service fees, credit card processing charges, as we discussed a moment ago, also collection agency fees, parking enforcement contract for after hours for the downtown area, as well as various annual software charges. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have related to the finance department budget, but those are the highlights.
Chris, I got a question about the credit card processing fees. Obviously, it's better, easier, and streamlined for us when they do it that way,
Yes.
but those fees are fairly high, so have we looked at the pros and cons, the benefits, potentially putting a fee on top of it? I mean, how we look at that as far as overall net gain for the city?
Yeah, at this point, we have not implemented a fee, but I do believe that it is worth, especially now that we're seeing those fees increase significantly. In this case, I think it's about 50% or so. I think it's probably the time to take a look at that and maybe bring some kind of analysis of something like that to the finance committee and then move it forward or whatever we need to do. But I think it certainly bears out taking a look at and deciding whether it's something we would like to do or not.
Questions?
I just have one additional comment to that. That seems to be the norm. You pay your ComEd bill or what
Yes.
have you, that fee is.
Yes, and it's been my experience at municipalities that it kind of runs the gamut. There are some municipalities that embrace it and implement those kinds of fees fairly actively. There are others that just, it's a cost of doing business, and it's kind of baked into a rate structure or a tax structure or something along those lines. So I would like an opportunity to maybe take a little bit of a deeper dive on that and then make a report back.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Alderman Buck.
Can you talk a little bit, we got one position change, in revenue collection, it goes from assistant director to a manager. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I'm just pointing out that was me.
Oh,
Hello? How are you?
Yep, come on up.
Good afternoon.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Just, we had the information here and, so just a little bit, why we went from assistant director to manager and how that took place.
The position is my position. My name is Lisa Zapata. I'm 5 months into my position as a manager for revenue and collections, and my predecessor was Charles Cook, who was the assistant director of finance.
Okay.
and if I may, I believe at one point it was a Hay study recommendation, that predates me. There was based on the job description, the qualifications, there was a recommendation coming out of that study that we go from more of a director level to a manager level. We opted at that particular point, due to Mr. Cook's tenure with the city and his position, to address that when he retired. He retired during the year. Lisa was promoted, and we've now implemented that recommendation.
Excellent, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
The only other two I had were kind of going the other direction of what we talked about earlier. So on page 568, in that division, I think it's budgeting division, we have the same number of employees, same number of full-time employees, and the pay goes down actually a little bit. And in another division, it goes down significantly.
We must have lost a big salary person, I'm guessing.
Yes. Yes, we did lose a long-term employee in the budgeting division early in '23, as I recall. And she was replaced with a brand-new employee, essentially entry-level. It wasn't quite entry-level, but a much less tenured employee.
Okay,
And that accounts for the reduction in the salary.
all right.
And I'm sorry, the other one, Alderman?
It must be the same, MVPS, Revenue and Collection Division, that's,
That's going to be related to what we just talked about.
Probably
Yes.
okay, that's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions
any-
or comments from committee before we let Chris go? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Next, we will deal with the law department.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Finance Committee, Rick Veenstra, Corporation Counsel. I'm here to present the budget for the Law Department proposal. We're happy to be the smallest department in terms of budgeting, so let me just take it from there. Some time ago, Chairman O'Connor asked us to there we go.
Pictures.
Prepare a comprehensive organizational chart which shows more than just headcount. It actually shows who we have doing what, including contractors and city employees. So this is the comprehensive organizational chart of the law department, which also includes the clerk's office. So this is more boxes than probably will appear in your budget, because the budget will show only full-time equivalents. But in this particular instance, I'm going to show you basically the full configuration of what we have both in the law department and in terms of the clerk's office, in terms of both employees and contractors, including the hearing officers who conduct administrative hearings on behalf of the city, as well as indications on where we use outside counsel and how we're organized into various divisions. So, again, a little bit more comprehensive than what appears in the budget book, but I think it gives you a little bit better picture of where we are and what we do. With respect to the 4 attorneys who are the core part of the law department, including myself, Assistant Corporation Counsel Deb Lang, and then Patrick Collins and Nydia Molina are 2 Assistant Corporation Counsels too. We basically divide the city departments in terms of what representation we provide, and we kind of focus on specific areas and which areas that we want to kind of develop expertise in, and then familiarity with our particular departmental clients in answering the questions that come to our department on a daily basis. With the help of the IT department, we recently were able to migrate our SharePoint help desk to the new platform, which is working very well. We're also looking at potentially implementing some matter management software going forward in the future. They'll help kind of maintain a fairly good repository of the legal advice that we render on a day-to-day basis, so we can always kind of go back and take a look at it. As far as some of our highlights from this particular budget year, some of the things that we were working on was a lot of work implementing the Safety Act, helping the police department respond to some very significant challenges that were presented by the new legislation, including coordinating with not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 different state's attorneys and sheriff's offices, all of which are handling the implementation of the Safety Act a little bit differently. We're fortunate to have a law department which is comprised of former assistant state's attorneys who worked in both the criminal and the civil bureaus of the various counties, which provides a pretty good understanding of how a county government works and who is responsible for doing what task within county government, particularly with the court systems. So that's proven to be very, very helpful, and Nydia Molina has taken the lead for us in that role. We've also worked with the police department with implementing the new body-worn cameras system. We've increased the use of administrative adjudications for a wider variety of ordinance violations. Some of the things that we've also been taking through the administrative hearing process is some of the distance variations for food trucks and other matters. That is something that's kind of new to us, but we've certainly embraced it and have taken that on with a great deal of energy. We've also updated and amended ordinances dealing with anything from animal control to signage, emergency management, food trucks, and special events, and we continue to update our risk management protocols. One of the slides that I like to show every year kind of gives you an idea of where we're spending on outside counsel within the law department. This is not an eye test, believe it or not, but this kind of shows you a little bit where we are in terms of budget versus what we've actually been spending. The blue horizontal line shows where we were with the 2021 and 2022 budget, and the blue and the light blue zigzagging lines show you where we were in terms of actual expenditures. So if you take a look, we stayed very well below budget in both of those 2 previous years, although we do tend to usually have a little bit more activity at the end of the year. We had a slight increase in our budget for fiscal year 2023. We wanted to have a contingency in case there was additional need for outside counsel work with respect to the Civilian Review Board. That ended up not coming to pass, but you never know what sort of issues may come up and where outside counsel may be required to handle particular tasks related to the CRB, although we have been handling those internally. The yellow lines show where we are right now in terms of our budget for fiscal year 2023, and I'm happy to say that we're at about the lowest expenditure on outside counsel from the general fund that we've been in my time as corporation counsel. We stayed very well below the budget. Where you see that spike is we've engaged outside counsel to assist the city in evaluating a proposed expansion of the city's fiber ring. And because of the specific tasks and expertise required there, we are paying a little bit more in an hourly rate than we would for general municipal type representation. So there is a little bit of a spike there. But even with that spike, we're still well under budget for the year. So when you look at what we're looking for in terms of what drove the outside counsel, we have always been, since I've been here and since we've expanded the manpower and the woman power within the law department, we've been working very hard to keep our outside counsel costs to a minimum. Obviously, as you add headcount, you would expect that we would reduce our expenditures for outside contractors, and that's been the case. In 2023, though, we saw a little bit of a change where one of our part-time assistant corporation counsels departed for private practice, and she was succeeded by a full-time attorney. As a contractor right now, for the purpose of this presentation budget, my compensation is part of the salary and not part of the outside budget. So what you saw in that graph does not reflect that. And the spikes that you saw in the summer, which I described as the use of enterprise with respect to the fiber expansion. So what are we looking for as part of the 2024 budget? We're looking for the creation of a new executive secretary position in the law department. With respect to the law department proper, that is the law department excluding the clerk's division, we run very low in the way of support staff. We have a management assistant and we have a risk management paralegal. They both have very specific and very defined duties, and they're both very busy. What that leaves us with is not having coverage and not having somebody who could fill in for either or both depending on when they were taking time off. And when we have somebody who wants to take their well-earned vacation days, it sometimes creates a little bit of an issue in the law department in terms of making sure that we have coverage. We also are blessed by having a very long tenured and experienced institutional knowledge of our management assistant in the law department. However, she is probably within a few years of being at that point where she may wish to pursue other endeavors rather than continued city employment. And having somebody else on deck to potentially fill that role is something that's going to be very important. I know when I first came in as the corporation counsel, my predecessor had left the office about 5 or 6 months prior to my joining, and the assistant corporation counsel had left about 2 months before I joined. If we didn't have that institutional knowledge in the law department, it would have been an even more difficult transition for me coming in from the outside, and I want to make sure that we do our best to make sure that we continue to maintain that knowledge base within the law department. The other decision package involves the fiber project that I mentioned. That's a decision package where we're asking for an additional $100,000, which would be essentially set aside and used exclusively for the purposes of, again, engaging outside counsel should the city wish to pursue additional fiber optic expansion. I said right now we're basically incurring those costs through our budget as it is. That's something that I prefer not to do in the future because, again, I don't know what we're going to have in the way of resources, but I want to make sure that we do have that ability there so that we have it looks like the screensaver kicked on, but at any rate, I want to make sure that we have the resources available and make sure that we have the legal representation that we need to evaluate whatever final product may come to the city council so you guys can be assured that what's being presented to you is legally sufficient and that the city is fully protected. And in areas that involve telecommunications and the varying degrees of federal law, that is something that we ordinarily wouldn't be able to handle in-house or with respect to or through the use of our regular outside counsel.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say something in support of the administrative function that executive secretary does vis-a-vis what our assistant corporation counsels perform the function before the administrative hearing officer. We have really ramped up the collaboration between the law department and development services, our inspectional services, fire inspection, and so we are seeing a lot more volume of cases. It's one of the quality of life initiatives that we've tried to push for property standards, and so the ability of our staff to move the paper, provide the discovery, if you will, from our staff to our attorneys to get the cases prepared for court. And of course, our goal is not always, in fact, the first goal is compliance. But as we know, there are folks that sometimes just can't get to that compliance without a little assistance. Sometimes the assistance has to come from the administrative law judge, but all those cases have to be put together. And so this function and this decision package to add is going to not only prepare for that succession, but help in 2024 with the processing of these cases. And many of you work with building and permits to put complaints through. That's kind of the part of the process you don't see, but it's still very critical. So we're trying to get that additional support to the law department.
And at some point in the future, it may become feasible. We're in the process of having an e-ticketing system implemented citywide that will also have a component that will interface not only with the circuit clerk system, but also with the administrative hearing process. There may be an opportunity down the road for first-time offenders to potentially, instead of having to go through the circuit court process, having an easier process going through the administrative hearing, certainly with a less of a potential for long-term impact on their records and whatnot, and also just for an easier time. So if there's an opportunity to provide that as well, that is something that we'd be able to look at as well. We don't necessarily need to go to the circuit court for very minor offenses that we know are going to be resolved very quickly and without a lot in the way of sanctions, so that may be the more efficient way of handling that going forward. And then what our proposed organizational chart, simplified and excluding the clerk's office, so there are fewer boxes to look at. We would see the addition of the executive secretary, who would be under the supervision of our management assistant. You do see the boxes for our assistant corporation counsels. We do have an extra authorized headcount, which I have not seen fit to fill this year. We've been very busy right now, and it's a matter of basically seeing how we want to address the busy, essentially, and what's the most efficient way of doing it. I sometimes get grumbles, but we do like to return as much money to the city as possible at the end of the year, so I want to make sure that whatever decision we do, and if we're going to bring somebody on full-time in the future, that it's absolutely justified that we need that headcount, and there's not a different way to do it. So I want to introduce in the audience, we have Deputy Corporation Counsel Deb Lang and Assistant Corporation Counsel Nydia Molina are both here. So with that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Questions or comments from the committee?
I believe the clerk's also here.
She is, but she's going to present separately, so.
Oh, okay. I just had one question on
Sure.
outside counsel, and so I didn't know if it was 2024, looking to 2025. Are we already assessing that we're going to need outside counsel in 2024 for any possible census movement and that review?
That is something that we're already looking at. Now, outside counsel's probably not going to play a great deal of role in bringing that special census forward, other than through our government affairs efforts that the mayor's office is spearheading. If that leads to a redistricting situation once the special census is completed, we do know what our expenses were in the last remap process. We've also gained a lot of knowledge, and we understand that there are some very talented people in the city in the GIS division. We may be able to rely a little less on outside counsel. I think that was we needed the outside consultant and the outside counsel because we were doing a comprehensive redraw of the wards. We may not need that same level of outside participation if the changes are going to be a little bit more surgical based on how the special census is coming back and what those numbers look like. And it may not require the full citywide change in order to readjust the population that we absolutely know is still there, but we're uncounted.
Thank you.
Alderman Bate?
Can you please go over the qualifications for the new executive secretary?
We'd be looking with somebody with a college degree, someone, if we could find somebody who's got a background, who's as a paralegal or someone with that level of experience. It's going to be primarily clerical. If we could find a city employee who would potentially lateral into that position and is already familiar with the city, something like that would be great. We believe that somebody who is proficient in a language other than English may be something that we would definitely want to have as a priority and would value very strongly.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Veenstra.
Well, thank you very much, and I would turn this over to Assistant Corporation Counsel and Clerk Jennifer Stallings.
Good afternoon. Jennifer Stallings, City Clerk. All right. So I will be very fast. We aren't asking for very much this year. Status quo. We have our work completed. We keep a running tabulation on the web, on our web page. These are our main functions that we are able to quantify. Our FOIA responses this year have been about on target, maybe a little high. So we're looking to exceed what we have in prior years, which it's good timing because we actually have our new FOIA officer for the police department. He started a couple months ago. He's been in training with us, and he will be heading over to the police department to help out over there, hopefully in early November. Our biggest ongoing project, and I know you've heard it in prior years, is our archive project. It's turning into much more of a comprehensive project than we initially anticipated, but that's also a very good thing. This is our actual archive room as it stands currently. Another view of our archive room compared to what it used to be. We are very proud of the work. Primarily Socorro Flores and Eric Pry have been working on organizing and flattening out all the documents that have been folded up for 100 years. This is just another view of a day that we spent, 3 days actually, that we spent with our consultants going through all of the documents and preliminarily organizing them. This is our staff now. When I said we are now fully staffed, we have Darren Gangler, who is the FOIA specialist. He'll be heading over to the police department. We have Dana Cruz. She's our confidential secretary up at our front desk. If you're ever by, please stop and say hello to them. Dave Tellner was here last year with us, business compliance officer. Just an update on Mr. Tellner's work. He's been doing an excellent job, and it's really been beneficial for our department, for revenue and collections, just to have someone to go out and he actually helps the licensees, the business owners, either come into compliance or maintain compliance. We think he's doing a great job. Then you have Socorro, Sarah, and myself up at the top, and Eric Pry. He was with us last year, part-time with our office, similar to Dave Towner, who's also part-time with our office. As far as anything new that we're asking for, we don't have any decision packages to go through. At this point, like I said before, we are pretty much status quo. If there are any questions, I'm glad to answer.
I do have a request for you in the law department. You guys put together these presentations that are wonderful. You could forward to us. It's great. We like color and pictures in addition to the line item stuff, but this is a little bit better. So if you could forward us, that would be great.
Of course.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
So I think we were done with our presentations today. I want to thank all the departments. I know this is not an easy job. You work on it all year long, and you guys did a wonderful job today, so we really do appreciate that. Again, every time we meet, I will thank the finance department because you guys do a great job too. So thank you again for that. We will meet again on Thursday at 2 o'clock. That's our next special budget meeting. Any other questions or comments? Any other thing to come before the finance committee? We have a motion to adjourn by Alderman Warman, second by Alderman Bug. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And we are adjourned at 2:32.